In my high school, students were required to use the program Membean, a vocab and spelling website made for students to expand their language skills. Each of us had to commit multiple sessions per week, each session around 15 minutes, while we were lower classmen. We learned new words, we learned their roots, their suffixes, we learned how to use them, how to spell them, almost like a game, and at the least it made use of our Chromebooks instead of us just running games on them. But this was an example of me experiencing injustice within the educational system. I wasn't being treated badly, quite the opposite. I was being treated really well, but I was receiving a form of education that was not available to other students at that time. I went to a private school, Christian, tuition, collared shirt, all that. Everybody had laptops and had time to complete those sessions. But not every school gets those. It happens to be a very small amount. According to the Department of Education last year, 94% of schools in the U.S. provide take-home laptops, but there's still a population that I was receiving benefits that didn't. And that's ignoring the fact that Membean was cheapest at $6 per student. It's a lot of money. If you're a large public school with hundreds of students, you probably don't want to put your budget toward a website like Membean when you could probably just use basic quizzes and stuff. But my teachers and the school unknowingly perpetrated an injustice in education, giving me an advantage in my lexicon due to having the money to spend on programs like Membean. And though this is a small advantage, because I doubt knowing Vindicate is going to get me accepted to an interview, there are many more moments of those injustices far larger that again center around that budget idea. School lunches being high quality, keeping students' energy up. Building design of the school to ensure students can see the teacher, see the board, and hear everything. Resources to help streamline processes or up-to-date textbooks free of previous marks are all examples of these injustices that schools have based on the money they have and the schools that don't have that money. But there's more to those. There's more injustices that are just in the classroom, not between a public and a private student, but two students in the same class, desks apart. How do those injustices unknowingly affect us? One of the largest problems with creating an equal playing field for students in their education is that you can't guarantee it, nor can you guarantee that all the students entering the classroom are equal. In fact, if anything, you can guarantee they won't be equal. I remember in sophomore math, there were 4 students in the front row, 6 rows back. That's the layout. This teacher used assigned seating. The best bet is I think she saw randomness in the equal dispersion of students. But by doing so, she had created an injustice because when she removed that halfway through the year, all the students in the front 2 rows were filled with glasses. They all moved up there. To see. Some students have a problem that require additional resources or things, whether it's a placement in the classroom, time, resources, things like that. Providing pure equality to the classroom didn't ensure equally benefited students in that case. And just as Professor Frankel mentioned earlier in the semester, does his past with soccer provide an exclusive or unjust aspect to education? These sorts of questions where these tiny things might create injustices despite being or seemingly equal. Past that, we need to ask, how do we deal with these sorts of things? In my mind, there would be 2 approaches to solving injustice, a positive and a negative one. Negatively, you could remove everything. You could wipe away those benefits to ensure an equal playing field. If a school can't afford laptops, no other school should have laptops. They have no place in that school. If 1% of schools can afford to give steak at lunch and believes that gives an advantage to students, they shouldn't be allowed to if other schools can't, because it gives them a leg up. This idea of bringing everybody down to the same playing field would be negative equality. Positive equality might be redistributing funds granted by schools on a need-based approach, but then you can't really guarantee that all the funds are used to what they need to go to. And again, you might be taking funds from high-end schools, which might just bring down other people, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid here. We're trying to give everybody a leg up, not a leg down. And so I think personally that the injustices across the educational system are very high and numerous, and many of them are almost unavoidable, if not general. Things need to be done, obviously. You don't want one school benefiting from things another one can't. But a lot of these minor problems of disparity are these natural differences between student and places. A school with 100 students shouldn't receive as much as a school with 1,000 students. But that isn't an excuse to give the school with 100 students no money. Each school has needs, and each student even more so. Just as students with eye problems deserve to sit in the front where they can see, schools deserve what they need, not based on a baseline equal treatment that's mostly used. From the perspective of a teacher, I think the most important thing is finding what each student needs by using general methods, and we can even expand that to schools themselves. It would be impossible to give every student a unique curriculum based upon best suiting them. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's just never going to be a way that you can do that. Even colleges, again, require general education to ensure a wide range of knowledge, and that's even more important in those high school students. But programs like Membean offer this secondary help of highlighting students who need assistance in literacy. It's easy to use large-scale tests, general quizzes on readings, and homework to keep students learning and active and busy. And it's easy to let those take over. But it's also useful because to advance our teaching, to better alleviate injustice, a teacher can use these resources to become an invaluable way to find out what students need, what they excel in, and to see what works and doesn't. For example, in unequal childhoods, there's a very large focus on the teaching students receive not from the school, but from their parents. I know this is odd, but I'm getting there. Alexander Williams and Garrett Tallinger speak differently despite their living conditions, and there's a heavy focus on how Alexander's speech towards adults is very different because of how his parents taught him to treat conversation, a lesson that's not shared with Garrett. Neither approach is wrong, one to his parents or the other parents, but it's clear that Alexander gains a sense of entitlement in conversation that's not the same as Garrett, as they say. If both were in a class together requiring oral reports or such, Alexander's needs are not going to be the same as Garrett's. Giving both a lesson on confidence in speech would be wasted on Alexander, but it would be the exact type of thing a teacher could use to identify who needs what in the rest of the curriculum, and can use that to localize specific resources to each. For example, Alexander might need to focus on articulation, while Garrett needs to get better at that confidence thing that Alexander can already do. In an ideal world, every student in every class gets a uniquely specialized education that allows them to excel and meet general standards while also getting experience in a large variety of education. But the lack of time and resources requires us that, at the very least, these small moments of alleviating injustice by promoting equality among students instead of general equality is really what should be strived for. Using general methods not to just give a general education, but to highlight who needs what and where. And that was how Membean was used at my school. Teachers saw if a student was doing bad in Membean, they clearly are going to have trouble with the readings that the class is also giving. So the teachers are going to focus on that student more than the student that's getting every Membean right. As a bonus, that student's going to learn vocab, but at best, it's highlighting who needs what and where. And it helps to alleviate, a teacher knows to not give that student a ton of reading because they know they're already struggling with just basic vocab. Using general resources to find specific students who need specific things is the best way at alleviating small injustices where we're using equality to then give equity. That's the idea based on everything. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.